Hello YouTubers, this is Still Sexy Butch coming to you again. I decided to do drag again today. This time I took it a little further than just the mustache, and I'd like to know what you think of this. Do you like it better than the mustache? Do you like either one? Anyway, this is kind of a serious video today. I want to talk about what I'm going to call the incident with my mother. It's very hard for me to talk about even now, even though she's been dead 34 years. But I think it's time that I address it. My mother was ill for, well, pretty much my whole lifetime that I knew her. She lost a kidney when she was in her 20s. I think right around the time she had me. And her other kidney was damaged, so she always had problems with her health after that. She had chronic kidney problems, chronic kidney disease. And there was one point in 1977 when my mother was going to dialysis, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week for like 3 or 4 hours at a time. So it was pretty much her life revolved around dialysis. And she was in the hospital. She went into the hospital just before Christmas of 1977, and while she was in intensive care. And while she was in intensive care, she had this, she had really small veins, so they had a hard time figuring out, excuse me, they had a hard time figuring out where to put the needles. She ended up having a needle in the back of her right hand, and at some point, you know, during the night or something, the needle slipped out of the vein, and the fluid from the needle drained into her hand, and it ate a big hole in the back of her hand. I mean, it was ugly. It was really ugly. It's like pretty much clean down to the bone. And so she had this big gaping wound on the back of her right hand. Then she got out of the hospital, and wasn't until sometime in January of 78. She was in there through Christmas of 77 and New Year's, and then I think it was towards the end of January she got out of the hospital. And at the time I was living with my parents. I was working, but I was still living at home. All my siblings had already, you know, moved on to their own apartments or whatever, and I was living there with my mom and dad and working and all that. So I think it was in the summertime. I think it was in August. I think both my parents, I never really came out to them up to that point, but I think maybe they suspected. I was pretty obvious, actually. So one sunny day, I think it was in August, we were sitting there watching television, my mom and I. My dad was working, and the sofa, she used to have this this recliner that she liked to sit in, and the sofa and the recliner were right next to each other. So she had her hand up on the arm of the recliner, and I reached over to hold her hand, to comfort her, and, you know, as her daughter, and, you know, try to comfort her, because that just really broke my heart to see her hand like that. At that point it was healing up, but it was very slowly healing up. So anyway, I reached over and I took her hand, and I was holding her hand, and she jerked it away. And she gave me this look that I will never forget. It was like the most spiteful kind of look. And then in this kind of spiteful voice she said, "I don't hold hands with women." It was like that. And that really hurt me, you know, because it wasn't a lesbian thing. She was my mother. I was trying to comfort her, you know, and just being her daughter. But the way she reacted just really hurt me, and pretty much let me know how she felt about me, or at least about my orientation. I could feel myself just like shrink on the couch, just like, you know. Well, after that happened, I think it was a couple of months later, it was early one morning, my mother started going into shock, and they rushed her to the hospital, and I think it was for the first few days or so she was drifting in and out of consciousness, and then she went totally comatose. They tried to drain the you know, the toxins from, you know, her body, because her kidney apparently wasn't doing it anymore. And so then she went into intensive care, and she was hooked up to all these machines, you know. She was hooked up to a respirator. And I knew, they told us after about 3 or 4 days, when they hooked her up, they said that it was just a matter of time, but that there was no more they could do for her, and she was definitely going to die. They didn't know how long she was going to linger. That's the word they used. So, well, I was still upset with her, and so even though I knew she was dying, I refused to go to the hospital. And I thought, well, what's the point anyway? You know, she's in a coma. What's the point? And I was really still very upset with her for the way she treated me, and knowing how she felt about me and my sexual orientation. So I went to this lesbian bar, and I was riding a moped at the time. I had a moped. So I went to the bar on my moped, and I was drinking and thinking about my mom and stuff, and about what happened. And this woman at the bar, I don't know why she started talking to me, but she saw me, and maybe she took pity on me because she could see I was upset or something. So anyway, she came over and started talking to me, and I told her what had happened and what's going on. And she said, well, you need to go see your mother before she dies. And I'm like, no, you know, I'm not going to. You know what? Why should I? You know, I don't think she even really loved me. You know, I mean, how could she do what she did to me and say what she said to me if she really did love me? You know. And she's like, no, you really need to go. So she talked me into it, and the two of us on my moped, we rode over to the hospital, and I went in and I saw her, and I just kind of looked at her, you know, and I had these mixed feelings. Like, I was sad because she was dying, but at the same time I was kind of pissed at her, you know. So anyway, I think it was it the next morning, or yeah, I think it was the very next morning. In the middle of the night, she passed away. Right after I went to see her. Interesting. So, I don't want to talk about the funeral and stuff. It was, you know, I don't need to talk about that. But for a long time after my mom died, I had these conflicting feelings. You know, of course I was grieving because I'd lost my mother. And she was still young. I mean, she was only 47 when she died. She was still a young woman. And I was, what, about 23 at the time. Kind of like with Elvis and his mother. And, you know, I was going through this grief. And at the same time, I was so angry at her. Angry about what had happened, the incident that had happened. And for a long time, I mean, I would even say like several years after that, I just kept having these conflicting emotions, you know. There was the grief, which was substantial, apparently, you know, I mean, obviously, because she was my mother. But then there was the anger at her for what had happened between us. And the fact that we never got to resolve it. She died, and we never got to resolve the issue. You know, it was just there. And I felt like, and to this day, to a large degree, I still feel like my mother died, well, maybe not hating me, but certainly disgusted with me. And not totally, certainly not totally loving me, because to me, if you really love somebody, you love all of them, and not just the parts that you find acceptable. Not just because they're your child, and, you know, in spite of the fact that they're gay, you love them, you know. But the way she acted towards me just, well, I don't think there's really too much more I can say about that. But that incident with my mother is still with me to this day. It doesn't bother me as much now, because it's been 34 years. And to tell you the truth, there's a lot. My mother is like a distant memory to me now. There's a lot of things I don't even remember about her. I remember, you know, from her picture. I have her picture, so I remember how she looked, and I do remember little bits and pieces of her. But there's a lot that I don't remember about my mother now. I think the passage of time, and, you know, and the need to get on with my life, kind of, you know, the memories fade, and you don't remember things as clearly. And it doesn't really hurt me so much now to think about it. But there's still, just talking about it now, there's still a little bit of anger left there, you know. And whenever I hear about parents rejecting their children, or, you know, or saying really mean things to them because they're gay, you know, then I remember that. I remember that incident. And I just want to tell these parents, hey, don't do that to your kid. What if something happens to you? What if you die? And you never get the chance to really sit down and talk about it, and try to come to some sort of an agreement, or some sort of a, you know, peace with it. You're going to leave your kid feeling like my mom left me feeling. Like, you know, maybe you didn't really completely love them. You know, maybe you just loved them because they were your child, up until the point you found out they were gay, and then you didn't love them so much. That's the way I feel with my mother. That you know, how else can I explain what she did to me? You say, oh, well, yeah, she was on medications, and, you know, she was sick, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not making that excuse for her anymore. You know, yeah, she was sick and all that, and on medications, but that's still no excuse for what she did to me. And, you know, I don't know. Have I forgiven her? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know if I've forgiven her just yet. Totally forgiven her. But anyway, there it is. And I just wanted to get that off my chest. I've been carrying that with me, God, for 34 years. And I think it's just time that I put it out there, and hopefully some people will come across this video, and maybe it'll help them, you know. Maybe if they're gay, maybe it'll help them with their parents if they can sit down and watch this, you know. But I don't want any other gay kid to go through this. So that's why I'm doing it. And, well, that's all I have to say. This video is already really too long, so until next time, this is Still Sexy Butch, and do comment on what you think about the fake facial hair here. So, talk to you guys later. Bye.